Welcome to GTC's Teaching Tidbits. Each episode, we explore a teaching technique, tip, practice, or idea from faculty for faculty. Our current set of episodes is focused on teaching hybrid blended courses. So today we have joining us faculty fellow Kathryn Hix. Welcome, Kathryn. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm excited to be here.
Would you start by telling us just a little bit about your background and some of the formats in which you've taught before?
Sure, yeah. So I am a faculty fellow, which means I work with programs across the college and curriculum in all disciplines, but I am primarily in the English department and teach there, and I've taught in most all formats and a lot of the different gen ed level classes, as well as some of the more specialized literature 200 level classes. And then I also occasionally teach in the humanities department in the leadership course.
Well, that's great. So you have a lot of different experiences classroom-wise that lend to what you're going to share with us today. So we're glad to have you sharing your tidbit today. So Kathryn is here to focus on the importance of communication when teaching hybrid blended courses. Kathryn, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share your teaching tidbit.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so today, since this is the first video and the first episode in the series on hybrid teaching, I wanted to focus on what our top priority is in that format. And of course, that's communication. And that is true across the board, whether it's online classes, face-to-face, or hybrid. But that communication element becomes so crucial when we get into the online atmosphere and the online delivery, because students really need that connection with the instructor to know what's going on. So I'm going to highlight several different ways that we can communicate with students through Blackboard, which is our learning management system and the platform that we use to conduct our online and hybrid courses, and just kind of go over some of the details for those different ways and talk about maybe some of the best and easiest ways that you can get information to students through Blackboard for your hybrid course. Okay, so when we're talking about communication, the most obvious, the first idea that comes to mind is the announcements. And of course, that is going to be crucial in the hybrid class. And the first thing that we want to look at there is a permanent announcement, because as we all know, our Blackboard courses land on our announcement page. So it's important to have that permanent announcement at the very top that just announces to students the course name, the course number, the instructor information, phone number, email, whatever your best contact is. And that should stay above that gray line in your announcement box so that it is there at all times throughout the semester. So when students log in, they know where they are and they know how to get in touch with the instructor if that's necessary. The next thing in the announcements would be like a getting started type of announcement. What are the first things that we need to do in this course in order to be successful? And generally, we don't want announcements to be just a total information dump, just, you know, paragraph after paragraph of information, but more of a bulleted point type list with items that need to be completed and any important information for the very beginning of the semester. Once we get past that first week, then weekly communication is still a standard. Generally, my best rule of thumb is to set up weekly communications at the beginning of the semester before the class even starts, so that I know each week whatever assignments are due, that announcement's going out to students with due dates and tasks to complete automatically. And then later, I will send additional reminders that are in context with what's going on in the class, maybe to review something that's gone on during the face-to-face section, because as you'll hear other faculty mention, in the hybrid setting, we really want to focus those face-to-face sessions on the active learning opportunities. So group work, learning activities, other techniques that that get students engaged and involved and get to know one another as well as the instructor. And so coming out of those sessions, probably there are going to be some reminders and some touchstones thinking back to the information that was covered in class. So that might constitute some additional reminders. We want to be a little more in touch than just once a week there with the announcements. Obviously, another important item in communication is email. That's the student's primary means of communication with instructors, and they should be using their GTC email, or they could be using course messages in Blackboard if necessary. But what you would want to do is post your policy, let people know how often you're checking your email. Generally, I try to respond to student questions or inquiries within 24 hours during the work week. If that's not your standard, that's fine. Just let the students know what it is and make sure that that email is available to them at any time, so they have that address handy. The next most common item for communication in Blackboard is the discussion board. And I like to have at the very top of the discussion board a thread that is specifically for questions, comments, just general information where students can communicate with one another as well as with me as the instructor. And I subscribe to that forum so that I get the notifications if a student posts something and I don't let it sit for days and miss being able to respond promptly to a question or a concern that a student might have. And then in addition to that, any assignments or information that we give them through the discussion board, we want to make sure that we go back and participate and respond to students, just as we often ask them to respond to one another, you know, perhaps type your original post and then respond to 2 or 3 classmates' posts. We want to be active in those discussion boards as well, especially at the beginning of the semester. We may ease off of that at the end because the data will show that a little less instructor involvement and a little bit of pullback as the semester goes on gives the students a little bit more autonomy in that platform for them to be able to talk and discuss. But you still should be present there and sort of informed of what's going on and the direction the discussion's taking and asking any questions or follow up and making any comments necessary there. Obviously, we have Blackboard Collaborate as well as an opportunity to have communication with students. And there's a lot of ways that we can use this in the hybrid format. It could be an optional thing where maybe once a week you offer a session that's recorded so that if there are students who can't make it to that particular time, the recording's available to them to review later. Maybe it's a requirement for your hybrid course that is going to probably be based on the department or even based on the course or the instructor. But something to think about is the frequency. How often do you want to do that? Do you want to use Collaborate? Sometimes just to record videos sort of like this one, just to give students information. Do you want to use it at other times to have an interactive back and forth type session? So there's a lot of options there, but it does give you an easy and seamless way for students to connect in an environment where they can see one another and see the instructor as well. Clear instructions are incredibly important when we're talking about a hybrid course, partly because they will be doing things in 2 different formats. They will be doing some part of their course face-to-face. They will be doing some part of their course online. So making it clear what's expected in each one of those platforms or in each one of those delivery methods is really important. And then for all assignments, just making sure that the instructions are understandable, friendly to students, specific for the course activity, whether it's an assignment, an assessment, discussion board, blog, wiki, whatever the case may be, making sure that those things are clear and that the students know where to look to find all of those things. One way to make that simpler is to offer videos, examples. You may post a YouTube video about how to upload an assignment in Blackboard. You may post a video about how to answer discussion board, how to complete a test, some important to-do lists or things that you need to know and have completed for Honor Lock for the assessment portion of that. And those are good, just sort of touchstones for students to go back and make sure that they've covered all of the necessary items there. And then another thing that I like to provide that I think is helpful for students are work samples. So if I have an essay that's due, particularly a big assignment, I provide previous students' submissions as a way for current students to go back and take a look at what has been done in the past. And I'll, give it with a caveat of, this may not be perfect, but they followed directions well. Notice how they, addressed a particular topic or used examples or incorporated research or whatever the case may be, so that students have something to base their own work on. And then finally, just making sure that the students have adequate access to the instructor throughout the semester. So if you're a phone person, you like to talk on the phone, you're going to be sure that you check it regularly and get your voicemails and return calls. That's great. Again, email is probably going to be the most likely way that we are in touch with students. And you may want to conduct some virtual office hours for a hybrid course. So that could be done using Collaborate as well. That's another option there. So these are just a few of the basic ways that we like to give faculty kind of a standard for what communication should be, what options are available to them, what the students are looking for, and ways that we can make those connections more clear and make sure that we're really fully engaging the students in the hybrid portion of the course.
There's so many great reminders in what you've just shared with us across the board, and so many different ways to think about communication with students. So that's incredibly helpful. I had a couple questions for you. When just things that I heard you talking about. One was with the announcements, when you send additional reminders. I've heard before, and it's usually a practice to, when you send an email with one topic and one topic only, so send separate emails. When you're sending additional or posting additional announcements, do you tend to do one announcement per reminder, or do you find that that ends up being too much? And do you have a format that helps with keeping some of those separate if you send it all in one?
Usually I try to focus on one particular thing, like an assignment or a task that needs to be completed or something like that. It kind of depends on the context. For the hybrid, I would say that it's easier to limit it to just that one topic or that one assignment that you want to. And you can always, when you send an announcement, click that send as email button as well, so that the students are getting it not only in the course, but also in their email inboxes. But there's a tendency that they can get flooded too, just like our inboxes fill up. And so it may not be as noticeable. So I like that option where it goes both places. But yeah, generally I try to keep it sort of, I guess, singled out to one particular thing, unless it's, the end of the semester and I want to make sure that they're prepared for the last few weeks going through. And I say, make sure you're aware exams this time, final projects that maybe they've been working on for a longer stretch of time. I may list those things together, but then I try to use the announcement formatting tools, like with bullet points or lists or something like that, to make it a little bit more clear, and just keep those short and to the point, so that it doesn't, if students have to scroll down too far, they're probably not gonna read it, not gonna catch it all.
Right. And in addition to that, do you leave all of the announcements that you post up and available for the duration of the semester, or do you set a date where that becomes unavailable?
I always leave them for the whole time, because I don't know what students are working ahead maybe, and what students are still, maybe right up to the deadline on an assignment or something like that. So I leave them, and sort of as a point of reference for myself as well as for the students.
Great. And I just have to highlight the mention of the work samples. I love that idea. And again, I also teach a communication-based courses, and especially with speeches and outlines and things, I've seen how beneficial that can be to students to see examples of the kinds of things that have been successful or met the criteria before. So I wanted to make sure people highlighted that as well, even to think creatively about how that might translate across all disciplines.
Absolutely.
Well, these are such great reminders, and we're so thankful that you spent time with us today to just share these tidbits. It's such valuable information for us. So if you have questions, you are actually welcome to reach out to Kathryn and send her an email. It's kathryn.hix@gvltec.edu. And that's Kathryn spelled Kathryn .Hix, and Hix is spelled Hix. And then if you have a teaching tidbit worth sharing or know someone who does, please let me know. You can send me an email at rachel.cobb@gvltec.edu. That's RACHEL.cobb, COBB. That's this week's GTC teaching tidbit, and we will see you next time.